welcome to episode 496 of the Spitballing Pod. I'm Luke Byron, joined as always by Tom Kennett and a returning Lawrence Roberts. Something a little bit different today, we are drafting again, and this time we're drafting players that have been managed by Jose Mourinho. It's the Jose Mourinho draft. So, first things first, I guess, how are we doing today?
Very good, thank you. Good intro. Smooth.
Thank you. Feel a bit closer to the camera than usual. Hopefully, I don't look particularly big. If I do look a little bit overweight,
What?
it's the camera.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
You've got a load of
Nothing to
cameras
do with
pointed
it.
on you.
So, Lawrence, how are you doing today?
Yeah, all good.
How do you
Thanks
follow
for yeah. Cheers for that. Glad to be here again. Like I say, and I spent pretty much most of my working day working on this. So
This will be sent to your employer. This is on
yes,
record.
don't worry, I'm prepared for that. So it's all good.
Good to have, a well-researched guy coming on.
Yeah.
Would be unfortunate if he didn't.
I guess it feels redundant maybe to reference the heat, but don't know how the light's going to catch any of us. So we are in the middle of a volcano. The pressure is on. And Lawrence's first draft, so the pressure will definitely be on.
Straight in it, yeah. Especially
Sorry.
no, especially
Nothing
that
prepares you for your first
my
draft.
notes have already gone black. So yeah.
I would say we usually do on a normal podcast a kind of what we've been up to in the last couple of days, whatever. If I start with you, TK, before I get into kind of the rules of the draft, when I say the words Jose Mourinho, what springs to mind first of all for you?
Oh, it is unfortunate that it is pretty much blind hatred is my initial reaction, I have to say. There's no getting around it. The type of manager he is and the clubs he's managed, it's not going to evoke a positive emotion from me. A certain level of bastardry. But then when you're doing the research for this, you are also reminded what a good manager he's been and the players he's worked with along the way. It's been pretty nuts, really, when you look at the sort of the depth of a draft that we've had to pick from. There's been some drafts we've done before. I need to get in early on some of these positions. This one, you should be able to have some fun with it.
An adversary for the three of us, I will say, maybe get this out early as we're about to do kind of the rules. I can't help but notice the two of you have got pens in your hands now. Usually it's Jack I'm saying this to. There will be a temptation, I'm sure, to play with the pen, to swivel it around. And I guarantee you those microphones are more sensitive than you think they are. I'm not just looking at you. So I would say bear that in mind. Or someone, when this gets leveled out in the editing.
I'm going to click it now then, okay?
Get out of the way.
Lawrence, what springs to mind for you when I say Jose Mourinho?
TK touched on it a fair bit. The current word I would use is past it, has been. But
2-foot challenger.
Yeah, no, like you said, researching this, going back through it, realise how incredible he was at certain stages in his career, the players he's managed and what he has achieved. So, full respect. Like I said, we'll see how he gets on at Madrid, but it might be curtains.
The beauty of him now is you do get to watch the car crash at Madrid. If it does all go wrong, that's going to be great fun with some of the sort of players and characters they've got there. Even him and Florentino Perez running it back, there's potential for that to go off. Both a little bit older now. Good fun.
I think all three of us as children would have been kind of told that we're supposed to hate Man United, but then pretty naturally that wasn't a difficult thing to do just based on the interactions that all of our teams were having.
I didn't say much convincing.
No, and I think with Jose Mourinho and Chelsea, initially it was a case of being told that I should dislike them. I remember the headlines on the back of the newspaper back when my dad or my uncle would have a newspaper in the house every time I'd be around, and seeing that build. Wenger, obviously, and Jose became enemies pretty quickly. And I remember the feeling kind of creeping up to the point where we get Jose calling Wenger a voyeur, which I'm sure you knew that was going to come up at some point today. And asking my uncle what that meant, and him kind of pulling me away into his conservatory. And I don't remember the exact wording. He wouldn't have gone all in at whatever age that would have been. But thinking, hang on, he's not supposed to talk about Wenger like that. With Fergie, there was enough of back and forth, and that had been all I'd known, that this was just going to be a thing that's going on. A third guy kind of getting in the mix and feeling that he could suddenly chip in that now.
Yeah.
And it's only worse then when they start winning on top of it. So, yeah.
We also, at that point, we didn't know that he was going to be a sort of guy that's going to go in and it's going to be in and out probably for years. So I was looking at thinking, fuck me, we've got like another Fergie here just at Chelsea. He seems to just be able to win everything other than Champions League. He just seemed to have that dominance about him, and they just felt inevitable under him.
Well, we got to a point, didn't we, where kind of my feelings on Liverpool ultimately changed based on when you were winning things and when you weren't, to be honest, and when I met a couple more people. And I think everyone's feelings on Jose kind of softened probably during the time, the back end of his time at United, where he started to feel a lot less harmless than he had been previously. We'd had the time at Chelsea where it goes downhill, but then he bounces back, and he'd done that pretty repeatedly. And so after that, when we got more of the memes and we get the football heritage and we get the look at where they play, if they play, these interviews in that tail end part of his time at United, going into Benfica, going to Real Madrid now, I think most of us are seeing that Real Madrid move now is that's going to be cinema for us, rather than until you butt them in the Champions League maybe, and then that's going to be a different kettle of fish. But yeah, the feelings have softened now, but I do think kind of like Man United, where all of a sudden they start to be able to win some of these big games again, and it reminds you very quickly just what feeling you have towards them. So
it wouldn't take much to sort of reinvigorate the old emotions towards them, I don't think.
No, I thought of that when he joined United, that could this be as bad as it gets? And then he goes to Spurs and he thought, oh my God. Particularly the feeling around his move to Spurs, where Arsenal were in a difficult position of their own. It's like, oh God, and they're getting him now, and this can only compound our misery. Fortunately, that all ends happily ever after. So anyway, if I whiz through the rules, then I'll do the draft order. The player only has to have featured once for Mourinho, but you are getting the version that played for him. If you picked Alexis, you'd be getting the United version, not the Arsenal one. If you picked Shevchenko, you'd be getting the Chelsea version, not the Milan one. Hopefully that makes sense to anyone listening. There's no cap on how many players you take from each team. I think it'd be quite difficult if we did that. If you want to pick TK an entire team of Benfica players, you are welcome to do that. At the time of recording, Jose hasn't managed Real Madrid for his second stint, so you can't take Vini Jr on your left wing just because he's going to be managing him in a couple of weeks' time. Nothing crazy with the formations. We've said you can use a 4-4-2, a 4-3-3, or a 4-2-3-1. We're going to have a 3 at the back and 2 midfielders as wing backs, and some of the shenanigans that we've had previously. And also, I feel the need to say this based on previous drafts, we're not shoehorning players into positions. A striker is not suddenly a winger because he's fast. If you've already got a left winger, you can't take another one and say you're going to put him on the right because he can do a job there. I think enough research has been done here that will police this one perhaps a bit heavier than we have done before, where it's been a long day, more people involved, and ultimately I'm at the point where I just want to stop the recording. I trust both of you won't put me in that position today. So no funny business, basically. And we'll then go through until we've all got a completed 11 of players. If this is your first draft you're listening to, if the first pick takes a striker, that doesn't mean the second and third pick have to take a striker. You build your team how you want. If you think there's a lack of left backs and you want to go there first of all, then you go there first of all. The next person can say there's a lack of strikers. I'll do that. But there shouldn't be a lack of strikers if you've... I don't even think you need to have done your research for that. I'll stop rambling. So we'll be going in a snake format as usual. In the 15 minutes or so before either of you arrived, I did spin the wheel. Hopefully you can trust that. I can provide evidence after the fact if you don't. So the order will be going like 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, 1. TK has the first pick. Lawrence, you have the second pick.
Okay.
I've got the third pick. So to make it easier, maybe TK, Lawrence, me, Lawrence, TK, and so on like that. So unless anyone has any extra questions, which hopefully if either of you do, you ask them before we pressed record. then we will kick off. I'll ask just symbolically, does anyone have any more questions before we get going?
No further questions,
All good.
Okay, so TK, you are on the board with the first pick.
Okay, all right, sweaty palms. I'm not going to mess around here. We've had some wild first picks on drafts previously, and people have, I don't know, either overthought it, looked in positions where they think there's not much depth. No messing around here. I'm going to go. I could have put him across the front line, but I'm going to put him on the left wing slot, very predominantly featured in this time. I'm going to take Cristiano Ronaldo. Pretty predictably, there's an argument that Jose at Madrid has him in his prime. Ronaldo's career has been so long, it's tough to really fully establish when his prime actually is. But if you look at that, the season where they win the league under Jose, they obviously break all sorts of records, the points, the highest number of goals. And I think Ronaldo scores about half of those goals. I think they score 120 goals, 120, 121, I think it is. And he's got like 50 or nearly 60. So, yeah, I think doesn't take too much explanation, that one, I've got to be honest. It's a no-brainer.
40 in the league, 60 in all comps, I believe, was the stat. Jose does have this, and you can look across the board. Obviously, we're going to touch on more than a few of them. Him and attackers, for someone that is labelled as such a defensive-first manager, he does have a knack for getting the best out of strikers. For countless of these players will say they had the best goal-scoring period of their career under his management. Ronaldo scores 168 goals in 164 games together.
Yeah.
Ballon d'Or as well on the back of.
Yeah, it's an odd one with Jose, isn't it? Because you are right, and yet, particularly as his career's sort of gone on, one of the main things is that as coaching has developed, it really exposes that he doesn't really do a huge amount of coaching on the attacking front. It certainly does well in terms of setting up defensive shape, but I think the likes of him, Conte, Arteta early on in his time, there was real questions as to how much coaching the attacking players are you actually doing. It seems like it's more about the structure, and you're kind of letting them do their thing. Now, to be fair, most of the teams he built, they're strong enough defensively that you're able to do that. But I guess, whilst we're probably going to give Mourinho an awful lot of credit in this one, I imagine, I don't know how much credit you can take for getting Cristiano Ronaldo. I think he's a freak.
Something you can credit here, and I imagine we'll end up picking a bulk of these players, he puts very technically gifted water carriers in where he needs to do that to allow Ronaldo to have the freedom to stay higher on that one side than he has on the other side of the pitch. The people in midfield, quick in transition, just get the ball to him as quickly as possible. And I think putting Jose under pressure is both the best thing you can do for him and the worst thing you can do for everyone else. And it's very easy really to look where he had the most beef and the stage of his career when he has that, because these are the times when really he's breaking off the records himself. And so him against Pep for this period, I don't remember ever putting La Liga fixtures in my calendar and having to go out of my way to find a way to watch it more than I did during this time here.
Yeah, you kind of wish you were over there for that almost, because that sounds like the hostility between them and just the tension that seemed to be in the media and the press around that time seems to just be like off the charts. If you think of, we really hark back for, Fergie and Wenger, sort of that sort of when it's at his peak, and this was probably that, and then some, because there was maybe those two. There was times where one was up, one was down. With these, obviously, you've got maybe the best team we've ever seen in Pep's Barcelona, and then Jose going in there and doing that what he did with Madrid. It's an insanely high level.
We might not mention pizzas being thrown if Wenger had poked Fergie in the eye, for example.
Superb if he had. Imagine if he had.
Okay, Lawrence, you're second on the board. Not as obvious, I would say, where you go with the second pick. This is going to be based on your preference, really. Where are you going to go?
Yeah, so I know TK said about making it quite obvious at the start. I'm maybe going the opposite.
He's going to overthink it. Watch out.
For me, I think there's a lack from what I have in this position. But I'm sticking with Real Madrid, and I'm going to go right wing. I'm going Di Maria. Like I said, Mourinho signing from Benfica, and I think that period of Di Maria when he came onto the scene, we all remember him at Madrid in the flair, the excitement, just the trickiness of that winger. I think he got 59 assists in his 3 years under Mourinho, which, it speaks for itself. like I said, I thought he was a quality player, to be honest. There, and yeah, I don't.
He's got one more season at Madrid before he goes between Jose leaving and going to United, doesn't he?
Yeah, so that was a season where Madrid win the Champions League. So
and is that the one where he racks up an insane amount of assists in the one?
Yeah,
it's like 20
so
assists or something?
it was brewing. I'd like to say, but yeah, I think, like I said, he used quality for it's probably his best period. I would say under Madrid. So
he's one of those, because of the United spell, you do wonder, do people over here underrate him slightly?
Well, even when he got his lick back, they end up going out of the Champions League to United in that tie, so it didn't really count for as much. I think the way I see his name pop up the most now is the quote, "It's tough to feel you're in a good stage of your career and then you're linked with Tottenham." But yeah, crazy player, blistering pace, great crosser, as you said. And when I think of a Jose winger, I have this very clear archetype in my head of bombing up and down. Defensive shifts are a non-negotiable for him, probably unless your name is Cristiano Ronaldo. And he's doing extra work here to compensate. So, yeah, nice pick.
He wouldn't look like that type of player either. When you look at him stick thin, you'd think he should get pushed about, whatever. But probably got overlooked. I think probably gets looked at as just like a techie player here. But you are right to point that out.
He sets up Cristiano in the Copa del Rey for Jose's first trophy at Madrid. And I even think this is further down the line, but if you're just talking about how he's respected, the last World Cup's obviously remembered as the Messi World Cup. And then you look back at the highlights and think Di Maria is pulling far more of a shift here.
Yeah, scored in a final,
than he got credit for,
yeah.
I appreciate where Lawrence has gone with that pick. He's left me probably my favourite non-Arsenal related central midfielder of all time, which is a far smaller category when I spell it out quite like that. I'll be going with Frank Lampard, the ultimate goal-scoring midfielder. Jose called him the best player he'd ever managed before he managed Cristiano Ronaldo, so I don't know if he changed that opinion down the line. 72 goals and 53 assists, I think, are the numbers just under Jose Mourinho. Ballon d'Or runner-up in 2005. Both goals to win them their first title under Jose at Bolton. Just unbelievably consistent, always available, always having the ball in the back of the net.
It's not a bad pick. Tough one to argue with.
Yeah, similar to what you said, just some of the other stats just in those few years under him. Prem player of the season 04-05, most assists that season. England player of the year 05, PFA team of the year 04, 05, 05, 06. Just, yeah, incredible.
Nissa, you passed up as your first pick. Yeah, I've said quite a few times before, I had to find someone in the England team that I could resonate with, I could get their name on the back of my shirt, and wasn't going to have a Man United player. Don't really think I had a beef with Liverpool particularly then, although that grew into secondary school. And Lampard seemed, I guess I didn't have too much of an issue back then with him or Chelsea at that point, which developed, but even the goals he scored against us, they didn't seem like they were coming from a bad place, I would say.
He was doing it nicely.
Drogba's felt like they were coming from a bad place.
There's a bad energy around his
proper vitriol towards him.
So yeah, I'll go Lampard as my one pick, and similar to what Lawrence did in terms of looking at my alternatives, I'm going to stick with the midfield for my second pick, and I'm going to take Claude Makelele with the third pick in the Jose Mourinho draft. Has the position named after him from that point onwards, balanced the team, protects the back four, wins the ball back, allows Lampard to do his thing, reads the game, intercepts it, recycles it quickly, secure on it. Anything more that he does that either of you want to touch on, or maybe you just want to wax a little bit about Claude Makelele?
No, like you said, touching it great. Played, I think, majority of all the games available as well under Mourinho. Yeah, I've got Chelsea's player of the year 06, and obviously World Cup runner-up as well. For France, 2 Prem titles.
Quite funny to me that, this is like mid-noughties, and we're basically only really just sort of establishing somebody probably should sit here and break up the play. Like, that's like a tactical revolution we had within our lifetimes. I know there were people there before, but the idea of this being an actual specific hold. You're not going to bomb forward. It's slightly weird to think of. Imagine if somebody set up a team now with no one like holding a specified holder, you'd be like, what the fuck are you doing?
Well, even I think some of it just having the job of keeping things ticking rather than I need this guy to be snapping into tackles. I need this guy to be putting it in the back of the net 10 times a year. I need this guy to do a bit of both.
I mean, the truth is probably that people were doing it but not getting the credit, right? And maybe Makele's the first one. Do you know what? That's actually there's a world class ability to do that. Maybe they weren't getting the credit before.
Well, it works in his favour that he leaves Madrid. This then becomes a big thing that they let him go for only 9 million, which when you look back at what that was in 2004, doesn't feel too bad of a deal. But yeah, I guess the celebrity almost of Jose in his first season at Chelsea and just everything he was doing.
Yeah.
Maybe looking for things to gas up, but did an extraordinary job.
Absolutely.
Lawrence, we're back to you for your second pick.
So I've done the right wing. I'm going to go for the left wing because again, I'm not stacked there, and it will be the return of Mourinho at Chelsea 14-15 season, and Eden Hazard, PFA Player of the Year, won the title that year under Mourinho in the EFL double, League Cup, sorry. Player of the season, and in all competitions he got 19 goals and 13 assists, and it feels like that was for Hazard that we sort of come to know.
It's a nice attack.
I know this was done through gritted teeth as well. I know he's got certain thoughts on.
Whenever I think of Hazard, I just think of Coquelin bouncing off his backside when he was running through and scoring, and obviously in the Europa League. But like I said, that season, he basically won every accolade that you can win to say you are the best player in the league. So
we were on the coach on the way to watching some boxing, and so watching that on my phone and seeing that play out was horrible, and then being stuck on there for another, what would it have been, like 2.5 hours, just getting pummeled. They did some nasty things to us around that time. And I guess when you go back, the first spell at Chelsea, yes, they have the extraordinary record with the goals conceded, but they're also playing far better football at the top end of the pitch with the wingers that they do have, the striker they have. Here he comes back, he's probably far more pragmatic compared to what he was doing before. And then he does have the allowance of a couple of flair players in there, Hazard being number one, where he says to him, I've got to trust you to go and win me the game, basically. And quite a few times that season, he does go and do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do think he's someone that's probably going to age even better for like my nephew's generation that are just going to be watching his YouTube highlights. Like, I
imagine so.
Not that I have very many to ask, but if you ask a 7-year-old about Neymar, he should be spoken about in more glowing terms than he is by general football media today.
Yeah.
But if you ask that age group, it's like Ronaldo, and then he's kind of right there because a 3-minute comp of him doing step overs with his slicked up hair and all of this looks so great. And Hazard, I think, is going to be the same as that with how he looks. Everything about him being a little guy, players bouncing off him, as you said, because of that kind of, well, the whole thing. We just all of a sudden discovered one week that a player mentioned his bum, basically, and that became a whole
thing. Was that one of those things that was like quietly being spoken about, and then somebody just came out publicly and said, I don't know?
Great name too. Great name.
That is it. You are right, that is. The thing with him, he should be probably more lauded, but I think he ends up getting placed in conversations he shouldn't be. So as a result of that, you sometimes I think some people will sometimes overrate him a touch.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, to counteract it, maybe we're not. Because I think the main thing is he's a fun player. He is fun to watch. And at times that directly resulted in results, as you've touched on there, in direct sort of numbers and winning. And at times, I think he was just fun to watch. Really good technical player. And sometimes, when people kind of make the case for him, they will sort of say, yeah, but he was much better like to watch than some of these players. Like, yeah, absolutely. But that doesn't make you necessarily better. Ronaldo kind of, over the course of his career, became less fun to watch, but more effective. And he kind of struck the balance right. And Hazard was great, but like less effective than, if somebody said to me who's a better technical player out of him and Mo Salah, there's no question. It's definitely Hazard. But who's had the better career? Who's been the better player? I think Salah, because more things go into it than just pure technical ability.
The way it's maybe not a day for that discussion, but the way propaganda was being run for him, there's a whole cohort of people that would convince you that Salah is an ugly footballer to watch.
Yeah.
And that became a thing. This is the silky smooth guy, and this guy, oh my, you don't want to turn away from the screen when he's playing.
If he's playing, close the curtains if he's playing out the back. Yeah.
As he scores about 40 goals a season.
Yeah. It's horrible to watch.
TK, we are back to you with 2 picks.
All right. I think there's actually some decent depth in these positions, but I'm going to get them both nailed down very early on here. And I'm going to get my centre-backs tied up.
Okay.
Oh, panicking, yeah.
And I'm going to take two lovely fellas. First up, I'll take John Terry. Him and Lampard, the cornerstones under which he built at Chelsea. I think probably when you look at some of the jobs he's had later on in his career, he's kind of struggled with the fact he hasn't been able to inherit something like that. I think when you look at some of the players he inherited, Chelsea's first time around, Inter and Real Madrid, I think it's not a coincidence that he was able to kind of work his magic around that. And Terry, that forms the bedrock under which that back four, as long as you can keep solid in the way that they did, is it 14 goals conceded? 15?
15,
so he's obviously the main guy in that. I think Jose gets the credit because of his collective as a whole team, but John Terry's the main part of that and obviously the leader of that team. So whatever we may think of him, he does have to go in. And for an equally pleasant individual in centre-back partner, I will go with Sergio Ramos. I think he's just, by the time Mourinho gets to Real Madrid, he's really coming to the fore more in terms of centre-back. By the time he's done, he's an established centre-half. He's going to go on, obviously, to win multiple Champions Leagues after this. Prior to that, it's been a little bit dodgy and obviously had been pushed out to right-back. And he's kind of developed a little bit more, less raw and sort of more polished. So, yeah, I do think he's probably, again, there's plenty of depth in this position. Jose's worked with some great centre halves. When you look at the career, ultimately, Sergio Ramos is probably the leading contender outside of the rest of them.
I had him on my board as a right back because I think it's Carvalho and Pepe when he first comes in, and then and he does.
He does make the move. You got to think by the time of the Euro 2012, Ramos is now Spain's centre half. So there's he's kind of established himself at that stage.
Yeah. Obviously World Cup winner as well by the time Mourinho's gone there. So
I do think he is someone who, I think if you ask people from the list of centre back, you guys obviously got to pick yours. They would sort of say that Ramos is like ahead of these guys, and I do think he probably actually in the conversation with some of these, but in terms of career achievements, probably outbeats everybody. So it's an
guilty
odd one.
pleasure. He's one of my favourite ever defenders.
I was going to say
from look to
he's
style.
Cool, basically is in his favour.
Probably a decent amount of it, isn't it? Yeah, you're probably right.
Everything about him.
Some of the stuff.
Saw Salah's arm off. That probably helped as well. That probably added a few points.
He clutch as well. Clutch when you think about it.
Real Madrid did that like inevitable team, and he's the inevitable player, isn't
that
he?
Header, obviously, again that Champions League final.
Yeah, he's the epitome of Real Madrid, isn't he? Really?
Yeah.
Okay, we're back to Lawrence.
So, bit of a dent, but we move. I will go my right back, and I'm going to take who some would argue was one of the best right backs in the world at the time, was Maicon. That 2-year stint that Mourinho had at Inter, 2 Serie A titles, which Maicon was part of, Coppa Italia, and then who can forget for Champions League, treble winning year, UEFA Club Defender of the Year. He was in the UEFA Team of the Year. I think, like you said, we can all agree at that time. I don't think there was really many argument for a better right back in world football.
Quite hard to explain him, really, isn't it? Before that, you
Yeah.
wouldn't have said the best right
And then
back.
after that,
it,
yeah,
wouldn't have said it. But for that period of time, would have
I
been
think so
consensus.
much, like you say, when you look at that treble winning team, and I'm sure we'll probably touch on some other players for Inter, everything was epitomization of Mourinho and what he wanted and what he could get out of those players. And like you said, for those 2 years, Maicon was formidable. So
Brazil had the big thing, didn't they, as to who they would pick between him and Dani Alves. And Dani Alves at that time was, again, the established sort of guy.
But, yeah, and then obviously that famous night where they say Bale ruined his career, and that's where it went downhill. But Mourinho was gone by then. So
that is brutal, isn't it? Realistically, a great player. And that will you ever bring up Maicon and then the Bale thing doesn't come up? That will just come up forever.
But yeah, like I said, that 2 year stint, hand in hand, just worked perfectly.
Yeah, nice.
Okay. Bit torn as to how to go here, but I will go with... I'll complete my midfield first of all, I think, and I'll take Mesut Ozil.
Oh, yeah, great show.
The creative hub of what became a transition-heavy attack just connected the midfield to Ronaldo, Benzema, Higuain, whoever it was going to be at that time. One of the most elegant players I've ever seen. Just an incredible way of pass, incredible vision, movement between the lines, unbelievable one-touch football. And I think to have this success in a Jose team being as lightweight as he was, as we wound up finding out, people weren't bouncing off Mesut Ozil, as we said about Eden Hazard a couple of minutes ago. I think he suited Ronaldo perfectly because as much of a desire as Ronaldo has to score, Ozil has the opposite of that. We see Ozil 6 yards out in front of the goal looking for who he can pass it to put it into the back of the net. And so that was a match made in heaven. And I think it might speak to how big Jose and Ozil were for each other in the fact that Ozil leaves 3 months after Jose leaves Real Madrid. Ancelotti... They bring in Bale, they need to get rid of someone, and he says Ozil is expendable enough that he'll see him out the door. So Ozil is going to be the guy I've got in there. So Ozil, Lampard, Makelele midfield. And then...
Yeah, probably from that group of players at Madrid, probably a little bit at the time being overlooked because of likes of Ronaldo, whatever. But you looked at like Ozil, Di Maria, those type of players, yeah, that's insane. Like they'd be the best player almost any
I'm
team.
sure you have it there, but he could have been, well, he was going to be one of my picks. And in the 3 seasons he had under Mourinho, in the league alone, 19 assists, 18 assists, 16 assists, 80 in 157 games overall. That's more than an assist every other game. It's incredible. Like you said, it arguably the best point of his career.
I think I'm going to look at my depth chart here, and earlier than I would expect to, I'm going to get my right-sided forward ticked off. I don't think TK's taken one of those yet. No, okay. So I'm going to take Joe Cole on my team. Just, I think a good example of, regardless of what we said earlier, that Jose can coach a player, he can improve a player. I think Di Maria, as we said, is a great example of that. But Jose uses him as the example often as a player that responded well to tough love, and that he wouldn't ever give him the pat on the back. He would constantly tell him all of the things he was doing wrong, and he would get the good stuff out of him. Just crazy close control, could bang it from range, great flair, versatile, can play in a multitude of positions, scores an unbelievable goal in Chelsea's 3-0 win over United to secure their second title. He got a winner at Anfield in that same season, I believe. And yeah, he tells a story of them coming off after a big win, getting in the changing room, and he's done a skill in stoppage time. And Jose tells him, if you ever do that again, you'll never play for me again. And so he kept him honest. So he probably, I don't think Joe Cole is one of Mourinho's favourite players he ever works with, but yeah.
Yeah, I wonder, because there was a time, particularly early on in Jose's time at Chelsea, where Cole was in and out. And I do wonder, was he a Jose Mourinho type of player? You know, if he had obviously a great career. Injury probably stopped Joe Cole doing even more than he did. But I do wonder, if he'd worked with someone else, would he? I know it's maybe not the podcast for that conversation about Joe Cole. It's not the Joe Cole podcast. But I wonder.
I think, and we'll talk about him if you don't, I think the person you'll wind up selecting here, Jose would absolutely prefer, but that's not a name that's going to wind up in my team. So I'll go with Joe Cole in this instance. Yeah. Lawrence, we are back to you.
Heart says midfield, but head says I need to lock a centre back in. So I'm going to take probably one of the more obvious picks. You would normally go hand in hand with Terry, and that is Carvalho. Record speaks for itself in terms of Mourinho and Carvalho together. So you had Carvalho and Mourinho at Porto. I think they won 2 league titles in the Champions League there. Mourinho goes to Chelsea and he brings Carvalho with him. And then we know what happens there. He's part of that defence. Concedes 15 goals, 2 Premier League titles there. And then when Mourinho goes to Madrid, I know Carvalho stays a little bit longer with Chelsea, but when Mourinho goes to Madrid, he's one of his signings dependables again. He brings Carvalho over and lo and behold, another league title for Carvalho. So there's obviously that relationship there. Won titles at every team that Mourinho and Carvalho have been together. He's played a big part. I don't think much more needs to be said really with how...
I think oddly almost like a touch underrated in terms of Premier League terms.
I never really, this is a thing, although I've picked him, I never really look back at an individual season and go, Carvalho, his best moments and all of that. But sometimes, like you said, you might not need to.
Like he is, in the Terry partnership, there is a Batman and Robin, but it is, he is close. He's not like, he's not a scrub who's, and I just wonder, like, when you talk about like Ferdinand and Vidic, I think you could feasibly sort of do a survey of people and people would pick different ones as to who they thought was better. 50-50 there's not going to be any split with Terry and Carvalho, but for that reason you probably shouldn't then sort of just sleep on him, because I think he was a very good player, particularly not the biggest centre half either, could carry the ball,
wasn't it?
Good ball playing centre half, could be a bastard, knew how to be, probably one of the underrated bastards. So
he plays 293 times for Jose across his career. Like, if we just do it by numbers, I think he's the ultimate Mourinho player.
Yeah. Especially when taking him to Madrid, that was pretty much towards the end of his career. And he still carved out. It wasn't like he was bit part. I'm pretty sure he formed, until Ramos obviously went to centre back, pretty sure he formed the centre back partnership with one of the other defenders that I might bring up. So like I said, I need to get him in the team, I think.
Right. TK, back to you, 2 on the board. A bit nervous as to where you're going to go, but let's see where you do.
Okay. I'm going to get a midfielder in here. I'm going to break your heart.
Mine?
Partly. You've already taken it, but it's still going to break your heart. It's probably going to break Lawrence's.
Okay, yeah.
I'm going to take Cesc Fabregas. I do think in that season where they win the league in his second spell at Chelsea, Fabregas is on fire. I'm not saying this to troll you both. I think there's a pretty good case it's his best season in English football. Numbers wise,
18 assists
is insane. I actually think his contribution, along with the contribution of another player who may come up later on, I actually think is a bit of a, sometimes they'll be like, Hazard kind of carried this Chelsea team. Like, that is not true. When you look at a guy like this can come in and have the impact he had. I remember watching Fabregas, like I wasn't sure that he had necessarily that in the locker, just because of his time at Barca hadn't quite worked out like he'd hoped, and then at Arsenal it hadn't been a great Arsenal team at that point, so he'd been sort of swimming against the tide a little bit with some. I mean, it's not, is it? He doesn't leave a great Arsenal team compared to the.
I think there's a season where it's a great Arsenal team that don't get the rewards.
Yeah, maybe.
It was all attack, wasn't it? We had
that's the problem.
Such flair, but
you don't. Yeah, I never looked at that as a team that was going to win serious.
The defense was just not.
Whereas, I was convinced by January. Went down, unfortunately.
I thought it was too much. Yeah, too infallible, really. And then...
So, but on Fabregas, before you move on, something that caught me this season when there was the campaign to get Bruno his 20th assist. When you think of how deep Fabregas is playing that season and the ease with which he's racking up those assists, like he should have had far more. I remember, said countless times, I remember where I was when the news broke that he was signing for Chelsea. I remember how depressed I was.
It's very much like the whisper near to George Bush type of thing. Fabregas has signed for Chelsea.
And then I remember trying to make some peace with it before the season began. And then I remember the opening day, that assist he does on the bounce that he... I'm not saying it's one of the best assists I've ever seen, and thinking...
Yeah.
Oh no!
The one to Schürrle. That's not the opening. That's not the opening day.
It was.
That was the opening day.
I was going to say, because it was a Monday night.
12 minutes in.
A Monday night. I was going to fly.
Feasibly the best assist that we've seen. It
was so good.
I'm thinking we're all fucked.
Yeah.
I think what made it worse is, like you said, he'd gone to Chelsea. That was bad enough. He's had that season, and then he's walked away with a Premier League title.
Yes.
Chelsea fans don't remind us of that too often. Sorry, but yeah, your next pick.
For the next one, I think I'll probably take another midfielder in that case.
I'm really midfielder.
Lawrence is learning tough draft lessons here. I will take mainly for that season in the treble for Inter. I am going to take Wesley Sneijder.
That was the pick.
He was unbelievable in this year. When you look back on it, it's a bit of a travesty. He comes fourth in the Ballon d'Or, and you kind of look at it and go, well, they've got Messi, Xavi, and Iniesta ahead of him. It's like, that was probably just filled in beforehand. Do you know what I mean? Because that's how he was in this year. I think it's obviously built on solidity, keeping the... Obviously now, we know what they did in terms of shutting down Barca. But as Mourinho points out, they only shut them down in the second leg. The first one, they won 2-0. So, and he's the creative heartbeat of this. I think he felt like, if you accept that Messi is kind of his own thing at this stage, Sneijder was kind of the best midfielder, the best sort of creative 10 or whatever at that point.
It felt like the best of the rest, wasn't it?
And he'd always been obviously in and around. It's not like he's an unknown quantity. He's been at big clubs prior to this, but it was almost like he'd never been able to kind of quite thread it all together. And this was the season that it kind of did. And you look at it afterwards and kind of go, probably never was the same again. This was really a season where he'd been a very good player prior, a very good player after, but this was the one where he was outstanding, put it all together, and it does obviously only in a few years later he's in Turkey. So
I like it. I like it though when a player gets let go from a team, they take it to heart, but they don't sulk. They go and instead go on a revenge tour.
Yeah.
And letting him go, I think for 9 million, he takes that incredibly personally. Jose is looking for someone that can be a true playmaker now they've got rid of Zlatan. And he's just given the freedom to create. He still works like a defensive midfielder. He assists the opening goal in the Champions League final. It's just a crazy, crazy season.
World Cup season as well.
Yeah.
Taking Netherlands to the final.
Well, with the Ballon d'Or stuff, he finishes fourth, but he's behind three players that win La Liga and the World Cup.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing that goes against him. If he wins that, then he obviously wins everything. They probably give a special trophy just for him for doing all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, where else are you going? Sorry.
Well, those are my two. Fabregas and
Sneijder. Lawrence, we're back with you. So you're taking a midfield.
Going to have to lock in midfield. It's going to be a very defensive midfield now, but that's my own doing. To be honest, this guy probably could have been picked for certain other positions, but again, we touched on it. That treble-winning season, predominantly he was used in the right side of midfield. The absolute workhorse, Zanetti. Like you said, he was everywhere. Everywhere that season. His career speaks for itself. The true captain of our Inter team. The undeniable, really. Like you said, could have
36 this year.
Yeah. I think
Before you meant now for a second, because this guy really is.
Yeah, played pretty much every sort of game, every Champions League game. Again, could have could have played a right back or left back, even other side of the midfield. But yeah.
That's the thing that catches me is, so when you do dream teams and things and people spoon in Thierry Henry on the left wing and you think, why are you doing that? Jose, every big game that season is playing Senesi in the middle of the park.
Yeah.
He does his own 11 of the best players he's coached, and he has Senesi in a right back. And it's like, you weren't picking him.
Outrageous.
I did see that, and it did throw me off a bit, so I've had to look in some more. But like you said,
you've played it more honestly than Jose did.
Yeah. But we all know Zanetti's credentials. I think FIFA Pro World 11 of 2010, and obviously he was in UEFA Team of the Year of that season as well. So,
Well, it's kind of like an era of just like great Italian players as well, isn't it? Just in Italy, I should say, not Italian players.
Yeah.
Okay, we are back to me with 2 picks. I need a centre back, so I'll go there first of all. I'll stick with the theme of Inter Milan, and I'm going to take Lucio. Only one season under Jose. It's recognised as one of the greatest single seasons for a centre-half. Bayern make him available. Jose jumps straight on it and says he's going to allow them to push the defensive line much higher up the pitch, slots in there, beats his former club to win the Champions League, monstrous in those semis against Barcelona. I've taken great pleasure in watching the highlights back of that so many times over the last week. Best defensive record in the league that season. He's my pick. I had this weird thing around that time with players that had a name similar to Luke, which is how I have such an infatuation for Luke Young, the Charlton right back. Lucas Podolski being another one before he came to Arsenal.
That explains a lot.
And here we go with Lucio, which was close enough. My next pick after that. Do I get my midfield all sorted at the same time? My defence all sorted at the same time? I will. I will get my other centre-back sorted, and I will take Pepe. That's
a tough partnership. That's uncompromising.
That's nasty, that is nasty.
The heartbeat of Mourinho's Madrid starts alongside Carvalho, then Sergio Ramos. I think for a period when you thought about psychotic players, when you thought about the big physical players, he was always the reference point for everybody. These enforcer players that just run through every team Jose has ever had, someone that sets the standard for the rest of the team, sets the standard to the opposition to let them know the kind of game they're going to be in for. And I think he's even coming back as Jose's assistant at Real Madrid now, which is some football manager business. I think his career is still quite fresh. And so for most of us, we're instead picturing the older guy lumbering around the field. But then I even remember Arsenal go 120 minutes against Porto in the first knockout round of the Champions League. And he was a nightmare even then. And this was a particularly fluid Arsenal team that could not move him about. Just a crazy, crazy player. And I'm happy with the two of them. And that's another Jose trait. For most of these players, he can take these insane personalities and harness them in just the right way.
I mean, that's what they're praying at Madrid now, isn't it?
Yeah. He thrives off it, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I don't know if they're bastards in the same way in this Madrid team.
And I think you wonder, he's much better at dealing with a Pepe type than maybe what is probably seen as maybe the entitled bunch now at Madrid. Maybe
be very interesting to see. See how that goes.
In both cases as well, you've got in Lucio and Pepe, they're probably because of seen as like tough, uncompromising. Obviously, the shithouser is mainly the first talking point with Pepe, but probably actually like as players, probably better than that would suggest. Probably better ball players than you would think. Lucio, obviously, with Brazil, Pepe, the longevity that he had, you don't get that by being like tough centre halves.
Lawrence, are you topping up your midfield or are you going elsewhere?
I'm going to have to. Very defensive midfield, but And I'm going to go for Xabi Alonso.
You've made a tough decision for me there. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's good.
Again, obviously at Liverpool was sort of his breaking point. Realised the talent that he had there, how good he was. Hence the move to Madrid, and then the 3 years under Mourinho. Like I said, solid player. Played pretty much every game. I think he was La Liga best midfielder in 2012, and then even that period that he was playing for Mourinho, it obviously transgressed into his period for Spain as well, with the World Cup and the Euros in 2012. Like I said, you could argue this was the best point of Alonso's career, this Madrid era.
How much can we respect a player that got ran out of town by Gareth Barry?
Who didn't even turn up. Got run out of time with Gareth Barry. He didn't even end up going.
He heard about Gareth Barry like John Wick, with the rumours circling around, and he's got the hell out of there.
Oh, it scared me as much as if I did John Wick.
Yeah, he's the metronome of that Real Madrid side.
Yeah.
Ozil and Ronaldo to win the games, Alonso to facilitate it.
Yeah. Just
dictate the play, initiate those transitions, and he's part of, as you say, that 100-point, 121-goal season. And
yeah.
the midfield that he's playing against in the Clásicos that Barcelona are dealing with, to be even just standing up alongside that shows you the caliber of player.
Yeah, like I said, 2 defeats all season in that La Liga season where he would have been pivotal in every game. So
whether we like to admit it or not, it probably does show the power of going to Real Madrid as well in terms of the respect you get. I don't think he had the level of respect that he probably deserved at Liverpool.
Yeah.
Probably different from the club, different from his manager. But I mean, in terms of the collective, I think sometimes when you look at him in that Spain squad, I think people would be like, well, he's not on the level of some of these other guys. And then by that point at Madrid, he's placed himself firmly in that conversation where you're probably not ousting Xavi and Iniesta, but there's times where they were putting him into the team. They're trying to play all those midfielders, weren't they? So that probably does show, that going there and then Bayern Munich afterwards, probably in terms of if you ask people over here now, I think he probably gets more respect than if he'd stuck around here, unfortunately.
I don't know if I have another example, but I do think there's something with, certainly for myself, the less football I used to be able to watch, and so certain things you would pick up on. The crossfield switch of play is something that I think a whole generation associated very specifically with Xabi Alonso and just his ability to do that. And that was just something that came to mind when I was taking down some notes for this.
Honestly, watching us after he gone was fucking murder, because you just had like Mascherano and Lucas Leiva looking up and going, no, I'm just going to pass it sideways, just constantly.
But modern coaches now, both Arteta and Pep have spoken out, well, players that have played for them have spoken out and say, they hate the switches. Declan Rice said he joined Arsenal being told by everyone he'd ever played football with that that's one of his best traits. And Arteta says to him about a week in, what's the point of it? By the time that ball lands at your feet, the whole team shifted across.
And it's funny.
There's an easier way to move a team around than that.
And it feels just certainly having that in the locker seems such an asset still to me. It seems whenever he does stop playing or just falls off a cliff completely, we're going to have such a problem replacing Van Dijk's switch. I guess with no Salah now, maybe he's going to not do it as much anyway, but that switch that he can do, where he can ping a ball like probably no other centre-half at this point, we're going to miss that massively, probably in the same way as we just missed it from Xabi in midfield as well.
I don't know if it's a freakish thing for me. I'm more engrossed when you see these clips of like players stood on the opposite sides of the pitch just pinging the ball to each other like, on a sixpence and catching it. There was one of Zinchenko doing it with someone else, and just when you see them do the little touches and just the weight and everything in that if I had like a TikTok feed full of that, it would be as close to hypnosis for me, just being stuck watching it. And Alonso, a great one for that. TK, we are back to you, I believe.
Yes. All right then. I'm going to finish off my midfield. Xabi Alonso obviously would have been very much in contention, but I do think with the other two that I've got in here, just to mix my midfield up a little bit in terms of style of play, someone who was unbelievable for a period of time, I'm going to go with Michael Essien. Not necessarily, sometimes he could play him deeper and he could do the fill in for the Makelele role, but he was obviously there's much more to his game than that, much more box to box. I think he was used by Gary Neville, one of his better bits of punditry, as a Declan Rice comparison in terms of the style of play. I think I'm right in saying, of that player who can get up and down, can be an absolute powerhouse, can bully you, but is technically good alongside that. Obviously, the goal against Arsenal will be one that's sort of used as an example of
Jimmy scored 2 goals that season.
Yeah, I was going to say,
It's just
not a goal-scoring midfielder at all. But yeah, there was a period of time where I remember thinking he was like up there with the best midfielders in the league. There's a reason Chelsea went heavy for him at this point. Obviously, 20 odd million at that point at a time when that meant something.
Leon, I think, plays every game, and they go.
When Leon win the league every year, and he goes on strike there to leave, doesn't he? Which, you know, that'll catch on.
I say my memory of that goal is one that I look back now, and my uncle, for some reason, had agreed to take me and my brothers and my cousin to the cinema. And I have a feeling it was to watch the animated classic Flushed Away.
Oof.
And we came out the cinema, and he says to me, apparently SEN scored a wonder goal. And then seeing it, because when you would be told about a goal, trying to picture it before you would see it on match day or whatever, it was an injustice to say that he'd scored a great goal against us.
Yeah.
They used that as the Sky advert, I swear, for about 4 years.
Yeah.
And then once they're done with that one, they do the counter-attacking goal that United score against us in the Champions League. So
nasty work.
We were fodder.
Banter club. Me again, isn't it? All right. I'm going 4-3-3. I'm going to say that now. And I'm going to say that you're not going to like this pick. However, in the season under which I am picking this man, this is where he played. On the right-hand side of a front three, for Inter that year, was Samuel Eto'o.
I had him as a right winger. That's a shout.
Yeah.
That's a shout.
I think he's come out and said since, hasn't he, like Jose was the only one he would have played right wing for, as evidenced by the fact he then gets put as centre forward for Rafa Benitez, and it doesn't go so well for Rafa. Just an unbelievable player anyway in terms of, but you would have thought of him just as an out-and-out striker, of course. And then this season kind of shows, puts his shifts, gets up and down the right-hand side, brings the qualities that you would expect in terms of his pace and directness and drive to that right-hand side. And God, let's face it, it's probably seen as a bit of probably could be a problem player in terms of his exit from Barca, stuff since in terms of the way he's left other clubs as well. You probably thought an up and down personality, but in this season, sacrificed a bit for the team and yet still has individually an unbelievable year. I do think you've got to look at that. The deal they did to sell basically Ibrahimovic, to get Ibrahimovic and cash, and in return you get Eto'o, is it's just a robbery. It's a robbery. I think Zlatan, we know how good a player he is, but I think, again, Eto'o affected winning much more. I think he's a totally different player, but I think better for what most teams will want. You don't have to play to him in the same way you do for Zlatan. And that was evidenced by probably contrasting fortunes here, where it doesn't fully work for Ibra at Barca, and Eto'o, it's a home run at Inter.
Yeah.
Back to you, Lawrence.
So,
you got a team in front of you. Do you need an update as to where you are?
No, I'm all good. I'm just feeling logistically how this team would work. I'm gonna
getting to and from the game or something.
Gonna do 4-3-3 as well. I'm gonna finish up the midfield. I'm going for basically a midfield that powerhouses.
He's gone. You've taken the best one. So
SEN could have done a shift in your midfield.
Yeah. This one not always popular, not the best relationship with Mourinho, but some of his better seasons were after his best at Juventus. I'm going Paul Pogba for Mourinho. I'm seeing some winces here, but
don't like it. Don't like it.
The period that Mourinho was at United and that famous quote where he said coming second, I think was his best ever achievement. And you do sort of look back and think, when you look at the United teams that have happened since in the points total, Pogba was obviously pivotal in both those seasons. EFL winners, Europa League winners. I know.
Treble.
Yeah, I know these aren't, the most glamorous of trophies. But from what the years that we got from Paul Pogba, and I guess what the best that we never really saw, these were more the seasons that we did for United, as well as, like you said, captaining that sort of form that he would have that would go into that World Cup winning team as well of 2018, where he was arguably one of France's most key and best players as well. It never really quite worked out for him at United. But
when I think of him at United, I think of the game where he puts the blue in his hair. They come back from 2-0 down against City. I think City could have won the league that day. I think that's as good as it got for him. But he also has a very public falling out with Jose at the end of it, which I think part of that is for the first season he has him, because Jose campaigns to get him there. They break the transfer record. I think £90 million they spend on him. And every week he's saying, you're not appreciating Pogba enough. Pogba's doing more than you think, defending him. And he must have had one bad game too many, and he flips. And then he starts saying, he doesn't trap back. He doesn't do what I'm asking him to. He's not disciplined enough. He's not a winner. He's this.
I think at some point Jose also realizes, like, this is going to have to be him or me, probably. At some way he goes, like, this guy will potentially get me the sack.
Digging out Luke Shaw wasn't cutting it.
Yeah, constantly. And goes head to head with him not when he loses, doesn't he? But I think at some point he realised this town isn't big enough for the two of us.
So we're back to me. Okay. Looking where there's the biggest gaps, because I think in a couple of these positions, I'm kind of happy wherever the chips fall.
Notice no one's took a strike here, have they?
No, I think that's it's stacked.
Everyone's dancing.
Yeah, I think we're basically
dancing around.
We're all happy with who we end up with, realistically, I think.
I will go and I'll get my left winger done. I'll bring in, maybe in the same vein with which Lawrence brought in Eden Hazard, I'll bring in Heung-min Son on my left-hand side. Central, really, to Mourinho's direct counter-attacking style that he plays in the brief time that he's there. Win the ball, smash it long to Son. Ideally have Harry Kane smashing it forward. Explosive pace, two-footed finishing, until one incident, which I don't need to bring up again. He has the 4-goal game against Southampton under Jose. He has the Burnley goal, which shouldn't have won the Puskas, that wins the Puskas under Jose. And the highest contributing season of his career. Not the highest goal-scoring season, but 30 goal and assists he racks in that season under Jose Mourinho. So that's another one that can say Jose's done that for them. I know you'd both pick left wingers, but I want to make it more exciting when we get down to the strikers and maybe have some decisions made for me. I will then look at the left back position.
First one is as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll bring in Marcelo as my left back. I don't want too much Chelsea in this team. I think for a period, he was the best attacking left back in the world under Mourinho. He was so valuable. I don't want to tread on any toes, but basically brings in Coentrao so he can still justify keeping Marcelo, use him in 90% of the games, and if it's a Clasico they need to win or a Champions League second leg or something, he can switch him in if he needs to. To have someone that can overlap Ronaldo is a huge thing. Can go in central to link with Ozil. He's just one of Madrid's key players during the Jose Pep battle, and yeah, happy with the pick there.
We killed Coentrao's career a bit as well.
I did
all
have
these teams, and then he is. Yeah,
I did have a look at his career from when he was signed by Mourinho for Madrid, and it completely tanks.
Yeah,
he doesn't get into he has a bit part, and then from there he's.
I think probably over here he gets a touch overlooked as well. When you look at you listen to people who follow Madrid more in terms of journalists and stuff like that. There's a genuine conversation between him and Roberto Carlos. I think over here we probably wouldn't think of that. But there's a real Marcelo probably is the best
Probably
Brazilian
more,
left back they've had.
well, I guess more flair that I would have seen in terms of clips, just some of the skills, some of the moves.
There's probably a decent case that Marcelo might be a better all-round player as well than Roberto Carlos.
Probably end up seeing him a bit too long by the end, which is an issue for a lot of these players when we're doing this at this stage. Yeah. Lawrence, we're back to you. You've got a keeper, a centre-back, a left-back, and a striker free.
Yes. Probably a centre-back. We've all got our centre-backs done, haven't we?
You took 2 picks then, didn't you?
Yes, I did Son and Marcelo.
More so I could maybe mention some names that, I'm mulling over, but
oh, right, okay. Yeah.
Court, really, because one is just one season with Mourinho, the other is a couple, and I'm sort of caught between Walter Samuel or Gary Cahill.
But an age-old problem.
Those were legitimately the next 2 on my board after the ones that have been taken.
In terms of Gary Cahill, was team of the year about 14-15 season. I'm pretty sure he played every game.
I think they starts the season with Kurt Zuma, and then Zuma gets injured and it forces José's hand, and then he just, as he does through his career, the best managers earn their luck, and he gets lucky.
There you go. I'll go with Gary Cahill. I think Walter Samuel, we touched on. I think he sort of interchanged a bit with Cordoba that season, and there was never really the full decision on the other centre-back with Licio. Obviously, great few seasons with Inter. But yeah, Gary Cahill, I don't know about you guys, but from Bolton, we knew the prospect of him, what he could be.
He's been linked with Arsenal on teletext every single day, and then the next thing I see, he's gone to Chelsea.
But I just don't think I could have. I don't think I could have seen him be that good for Chelsea. I think. Like I say, he was such a key defender, especially that one season under Mourinho. But after that, he played for many years and won many more trophies. He was just, I think he was solid and dependable. I thought
that's the word. I think Jose defenders are dependable.
Yeah.
You look at that defense that has the conceding record, and then you look through each of the sides. Maybe there's room for one player that's got a bit more flair about them, but ultimately you're looking at. Doesn't jump off the page at you. If they were to sell them, they wouldn't have got huge money for them. No. But every single week, you knew you were getting a solid 7 out of 10 doing of the job. And if he needed to ask them to do something different on the day, they weren't above it. They were happy to do, and they would just play for him every day of the week.
And in that position, that's kind of what you need, isn't it? Is you don't need up and down. It's kind of like our thing this year with like Kanate. I don't need you to be like an 8 one week, but then a 4 the next. I just need you to be solid, and that's what Gary Cahill pretty much was. I don't think I'm being disrespectful here. I don't think you'd have ever called him world class, but probably just that rung below, and that's probably what you need. As long as you're on a good solid team, that's what you need.
Yeah.
All right, TK, you've got a goalkeeper, a right back, a left back, and a striker left to take.
All right, I think I'll get my fullbacks sorted in that case. I will take Ashley Cole. Ultimately, what are you wincing there for?
I think he has a bit of a stinky time under Jose.
I think by the time of Jose's departure, he's starting to get his feet. I do remember when he first went there, but there was real conversations as did Arsenal get the better end of the deal, wasn't there, with regards to.
I think at the time I was happy with
Gallas. Some cash and Gallas.
I think because he gets injured straight away, so he missed a chunk, and then he's sharing the role.
But I do think
shipped to Roma at the back end of it. Which we get the great squad photo out of, so everyone was a winner.
Yeah, exactly. I think all in all, I think you've got enough of good Ashley Cole across these spells that I think he's probably got to be picked. And on the other side, I'll go with Bronislav Ivanovic. I think for a period of time, I do think he was the best right back around.
I hated him.
I thought he was going to fall to me.
But for that reason, if I hate someone, it's because of how good they are, and he was
like
the Hulk. He used to remind me of like the Hulk.
Yeah, he was brought in obviously as centre half, and then when he saw him at right back, you'd be like, wow, that'll be fine. We'll be able to get at him. And it turns out he's not just big and strong; he's rapid for this period of time as well. Now, by the time it goes of downhill for him. It really did go downhill, just obviously much later on. But for this period of time, when he's in his pomp, he was an absolute fucking nightmare. Got forward well as well, probably better than you would expect from a kind of converted centre half. Yeah, he was unbelievable.
We did a podcast 2, maybe 3 years ago when there was the inception of the Premier League Hall of Fame as to whether he should be in the Premier League Hall of Fame. I think we agreed at the end of it that he should be. I mean, he's so good at right back. I don't want to tread on too many toes. Only Lawrence has got a left back left to take. That as Azpilicueta is shifted to left back.
Yeah.
And I do think Jose Arteta gets a lot of credit's probably the wrong word. He gets a lot of detraction for doing it, the centre back at full back thing. And it's only really when I was building my board here and I was thinking about Gallas and Ivanovic and Azpilicueta and Sergio Ramos, and you look at centre backs playing full back and think he was kind of doing this all along, but we didn't think too much of it. We just said they aren't as good as getting forward as some of the other guys.
Yeah, well, sometimes I don't trust you enough, so I'll put you out to right back or whatever. And I think one of I won't touch on it too much, but I think one of those was probably more of a revelation than the others.
Does he have one of the worst fall-offs we've ever seen, Ivanovic? That West Brom spell was nasty.
Yeah, that was properly hung out to dry, wasn't it? I mean, looking back, that's Rio Ferdinand's spell at QPR was fantastic looking back, wasn't it? It really hung out to dry. So, I know what you mean, because when I was looking at, sorry to go back to the left-back situation, I remember thinking Cole didn't start well at Chelsea as well, but I think in his second season, they go down to the final game of the season in terms of a fight with United for the title, don't they? And he's a mainstay by that point. He's kind of got his sea legs under him, so that was enough to convince me on that one. And yeah, I think Ivanovic, if we have a conversation of the best Prem right backs, he's in the conversation.
Lawrence, we're back to you. You've got a goalkeeper, a left back, and a striker left to take.
Yes. Tempted by goalkeeper just because. So you both have your left back sorted, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So on that note, it makes it a bit easier for me to make a decision there. I'm going to go goalkeeper. I think going to go with the most obvious one, although there were some great ones, and that is Petr Cech. 3 Prem titles, 2 with Mourinho in the first 3 years, and then the latter one, although he was more on the side, FA Cup, 2 League Cups, PFA Team of the Year, Golden Glove, UEFA Best Keeper, UEFA Team of the Year, all of these accolades, and these trophies are just during the Mourinho times. Obviously take into account the rest and being part of that 15 goal conceded.
24 clean sheets that season, which was the record at the time.
Well, if we were to mention best Premier League keepers of all time, I think he'd arguably be there.
Him and Jens Lehmann.
Yeah, so like I said, formidable keeper. Again, one of the very players I hated under Chelsea because he was just too good.
I hated him more at Arsenal.
That well.
He signed and went immediately into the team, which was
this was the era of the ball playing as well, where he obviously could not do.
And I did watch back the injury that he got from Stephen Hunt, because I couldn't remember if it was Jose that was there at the time. 2 things caught me. One, I'd forgotten that it was 20 seconds into the game.
I knew it was early. I didn't realize 20 seconds. Yeah, bloody hell.
Another thing was just how intentional it did look
when
I watch it back. And third, because Cudicini goes off in the same game, so Terry ends the game in goal. And Jose basically says, look, the second one that happens, that's a coming together on the field. He accuses Stephen Hunt of smiling and laughing after the fact in his interview post-game. And
I can believe it.
Something, respect's maybe the wrong word, but something I think should happen more often if you do feel that way was Cech turns down a public apology from him, he ignores it. They say he writes him a Christmas card, which was a funny thing to me. You're posting this Merry Christmas, hope we can forget what happened. And Then he tries to contact him again, and Cech basically says, I have no desire to speak to you. Years later down the line, Hunt gives him credit and says, I would rather he spoke to me, but he also could have really run my name through the mud, and he chose not to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, then the scrum hat becomes synonymous with him as a player.
It's on FIFA, isn't it? The negotiations where he goes,
Goes in with a scrum.
yeah, iconic.
Perfect.
Then he finished playing and thought, all right, I've had enough trauma in my body. Let me go and be a hockey keeper and go from there. Yeah.
So I had a look. I'm pretty sure it still says he's
playing over here. So you could just rock up and see him in like Swindon or Cardiff or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah, when he first came to the Prem, I thought this guy's an absolute freak. Because Cudicini was a good keeper, so I was like,
pushed him out very
why are they
early.
getting that in? And then we watched him in Euro 2004. We're like, okay, this guy is insane and just insanely big.
Yeah.
And then he looked unbeatable when he first came to Chelsea. I do wonder, he obviously had an unbelievable career. I do wonder if it would have been even better had he not sustained that head injury. I just remember thinking when he first came in, this guy's an absolute monster. And did I have exactly the same feeling post head injury? I don't know. It's probably too small a span of time before the head injury.
I can't really remember how long he was.
It wasn't that long that he'd been here, I don't think, was it?
No. But I can't remember how long he was out for as well. It feels
must have been like the best part of a year, I would
but
imagine.
It feels like he went from one season to next. It wasn't.
It doesn't feel like he was out like forever because obviously that Hilario ended up getting game time, didn't he? Because Cudicini went down.
I read the BBC report, and Bob Wilson was doing 5 Live at the time, and he's saying Hunt's getting a load of stick here, but I don't think we want to get to a place in time where keepers are just overprotected. Keepers don't want that. Which felt a strange time to be.
You can't even fracture a skull anymore.
Strange time to say it, but he was onto something, wasn't he? Keepers are very.
He was a visionary.
Yeah, he was. Just used the wrong example.
Okay, we're on to me. I know which striker I want. It's just, do I want the other striker ending up in one of your teams? I'll go with my gut.
What picks have you got left?
Striker, goalkeeper, right back. You've all got your right backs, so I know what I'm going to take there. I'll leave that for last. I'm going to go with my gut, actually, for both of these. So if I do the striker first, I'm going to go with the guy whose YouTube comps I watched for an hour after getting home today, and that's going to be Diego Milito. I think the best single season of any Mourinho striker.
He was very clutch.
I like it.
Top scorer in the league, scored both in the Champions League final, only goal in the Coppa Italia, 30 in 52 games across that season, could hold it up, run in behind, link play, shoot off both feet. The fact Eto's being shifted to the right wing should tell you what we've got here. I think he joins Inter at 30 years old and he's in the Hall of Fame. I know 30 years old in Serie A years is a lot different to over here, but yeah, I think this is someone that even as we just saw Serie A on YouTube and in the Champions League at the time, he was deemed a cool player by everyone that watched him. I think the long hair seems to do that for players. But this a special player, and the variety in his goals, I would say, watching them back today. You put a good soundtrack on there and you're rocking.
I can still picture his 2 goals in that final. And kind of just to sort of bump up what you said. Yes, we were young at the time of that year, but I don't even really recall him before or after. And he came onto that scene in that season and I knew everything about him. He went from, to me, a nobody to, like you said, one of the best.
He was one of those strikers that kind of got linked with moves because he'd done okay like Zaragoza, wasn't it? But then I think the main thing was that he was brothers with Gabriel. He was linked with us a lot. He was linked with other teams a lot. Obviously, he plays for Barca. So it was almost like he was Gabriel Milito's brother as opposed to, standout himself.
Yeah.
But if we talk about standout seasons from some of these players, said about before and after with Maicon, even Schneider to an extent, Diego Milito, like this season is the one, isn't it? Where you just speak about that, you go, it's kind of hard to explain to somebody how good he was this year in a way.
Well, you mentioned the Champions League final goals. He also, he scored in every knockout game in the Champions League in terms of every knockout tie. So he scored against Chelsea, CSK, against Barca. He got the assist as well for Schneider, and then, like you said, to round it off, the 2 goals in the final.
He's got a good collection of lifting the net up off the pegs as well, just absolutely hammering it in. I do think probably it always was like when we were really young, but around a 5-year period here, Serie A just had a load of these cool or interesting players that we would know about,
That's
whether
what I
it
mean,
was
like,
by the birth of Ultimate Team or things like that. Like, we shouldn't have known so much about like El Shaarawy or Nainggolan or Wilson Palacios or any of these guys if you just had an interest in trim, if you were fast.
Yeah, it's just great time in the Italian league.
Trim.
That's what I meant, sorry.
Yeah.
Palacios, yeah.
Yeah, but sorry.
Yeah.
It was
great times. And then I will take my goalkeeper, and Petr Cech, as you say, probably the best of all time in the Premier League. I think Alisson, I always said, is the best goalkeeper of all time. I think the highest level I've ever seen from a goalkeeper is during Mourinho's time at Man United, and it's David De Gea. Maybe I'm just thinking of the record-breaking 14-save game against Arsenal. But when you have some of the goalkeepers we've had in the Premier League through the years, I don't think I've ever thought about a goalkeeper as much pre-game as I have David De Gea. Like, Cech, I don't think Cech was at the forefront of my mind. It was going to be Drogba, or it was going to be Lampard, whoever. Liverpool, I'm going in and I'm thinking about whether it's Van Dijk, whoever it's going to be. These United games, I was solely thinking about De Gea was number 1 on my list of, if he has a good game today, we've got no chance. Some of the ones in the game that he breaks the record in are insane that he saves. There's one from Alexis Sanchez
and then
that is practically on the line and he's smashing it and he's somehow keeping it out. It's crazy. And then we get a Lingard dagger at the other end to really compound the misery.
Another person dancing at the stadium. I hate that. I hate that. He was great with his feet, wasn't he, in terms of the saving with his feet. We always used to say about keepers had to get down, and you used to see so many goals go in because they couldn't get down in time. De Gea would just be like, oh, sod this, I'm going to use my feet. And it worked so well.
I've slowly been deleting the cringiest things that pop up on my Facebook on these days, which is a really strenuous task. But the one I keep every year and I see it is I share something along the lines of, I could do a better job in goal for Man United than David De Gea. When he first joined, he was horrible. And then seeing that as we go on.
I think he was younger than you think as well, wasn't he? He looked kind of frail, didn't he?
One of the things from Whoville, I used to say that's, I don't know, are they called Hughes? I don't know.
They are. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Well, there you go.
Okay, I didn't think I'd be flexing Dr. Seuss knowledge today, but The Cat in the Hat is coming back out in a couple of months. Lawrence, we're back to you. You've got a left back or a striker to take.
Problem is,
shouldn't be a problem there.
Well, I should go striker, but part of me would like to finish on a. You know what? No, because you're going to have the two picks, aren't you? So
by all means, leave striker for me if you want.
He wanted to save his Big Mac till after his chips.
They saw me eyeing up the Big Mac. Oh, I'm going to have this.
Okay, well, I guess then it is going to be another Chelsea pick. I think it is arguably one of the most obvious ones.
I thought he'd be a first-round pick.
Yeah, I was expecting that too. So I'm gonna have to take this, and that is Didier Drogba. Again, just some of the stats in his period with Mourinho. You've got the 3 Prem titles again. Obviously, he went back as well. You got the FA Cup. You got 3 League Cups. Golden Boot winner. I know a lot of the time the criticisms used to be about, did he actually score that many? But he's got a Golden Boot under his belt. UEFA Team of the Year, Chelsea Player of the Year, and I think we all know his strength. It's the big game player he was. I used to, when you said about fearing, and I know you feared the same with Drogba, I used to absolutely detest him. It was inevitable that he would come to Arsenal, he'd go to Chelsea, he'd play with us. He would play with us.
Haaland doesn't scare me half as much because I've lived through Rooney, Drogba, Vardy, Kane. And so, I mean, here we are at this stage. I would like to go back to revisit some of the media at the time, because Jose has created this thing now that he's plucked Drogba from relative obscurity. But then I look and see he cost you 24 million. So something doesn't add up.
He bullied us in the UEFA Cup for Marseille before that.
Well, that's the best way to describe him, I think. Just a terrifying bully of a player. And yeah, if you didn't get out of the way, he would run through you. He would smash the ball through your net. He was just a crazy player.
What was it Carragher said, I think, where he said he could have the perfect game against Drogba and not put a foot wrong, and Drogba would still score. And I know one of us somewhere would know it or have it about his record in finals.
If you said most clutch player, he's got to be.
I know it was after Mourinho's time, but the Champions League final against Bayern, like, Chelsea shouldn't have even had a right to be winning that, to be honest. And he...
Yeah. Interesting. The only interesting thing with the Drogba pick is there is a decent case that obviously certainly his first season, even his second season, isn't yet at his best. And obviously by the time of the third, Jose is not long and then on his bike is the only question mark I had when I was looking at picking him.
I think if I think of
them as a partnership. I do think Mourinho, but
I think if I think of the player associated with Jose, he's probably number one.
But just worth saying, I think actually when you look at compared to some of the other ones in there,
we'll see who you take, because you do have a plethora of options to get into. So we'll have your last two picks now: goalkeeper and striker.
Okay. In that case, I'll get the goalkeeper done, and then
you want to end on a striker.
Big.
You got to end on the striker, not a left back like me.
Goalkeeper is a bit of a. Obviously, you're taking checking the hair. I think there's a toss up between two men here, and I think you've got one on his way to becoming one of the best keepers in the world, and one probably at the point, and then after falling out with Jose, probably starts to decline. But I will go with Iker Casillas. I think by Jose's last season, he is falling out with people.
Gets run out of town.
And he running Casillas out of town. There is literally a camp of you are Casillas or you are Jose Mourinho. I still think, obviously, in the season where they break all the records, Casillas is still the number one at that point. He's still, I think, again, probably one of those things you benefit from playing over there than over here. I think we didn't see the bad games for Iker Casillas. We would only tend to see the good, so I think he's lauded over here. And maybe Jose might have said there was, some issues by the end of his time that maybe he wasn't still the top keeper. But when you've been a World Cup winner for Spain only in the last few years at this point, and you've won every title under the sun with Real Madrid, you're not doing too bad, are you? And so he's not going to be a bad pick. I'll take him in there.
Solid
choice. It was genuinely M&R because Courtois in his first season back at Chelsea, obviously been on loan at
No consideration for Julio Cesar?
I did,
not really. I think the QPR thing probably did kill him a bit.
And the 7-1 with Brazil. Again, how much is that his fault? I don't know. But certain memories leave a...
I don't think he had the same... If you look at those two I just discussed there and the two you took, I don't think you can have him on the same plane as those guys.
I would have had him purely on the classic, the treble winning season. Other than that, it's
Are you taking up top?
Have you guys taken your strikers?
Yeah.
You're done. All right, so I'm really caught between a couple here. There's actually, but I think there are probably two choices. One for one real standout season and one for a couple of seasons under Jose, but a wealth of season under that. And he is probably the pick, but maybe not the sexiest.
I think there's four you could take, and none of us would be able to say too much.
Yeah, I think I hope I've got the same ones there. I will go with, it's not the sexiest pick, I will go with Harry Kane. I do think
on my top three.
He is he is the pick. He's under Jose as well. You'd probably tend to think this probably shouldn't work, and yet the numbers are a joke. I mean, Kane's numbers before and after Mourinho are a joke, so it's not just that. But him and Son,
that partnership that
really comes to fruition, I think, at this time.
Jose credits himself with being the one to tell Kane that he should start dropping deeper and getting more involved in the game.
So it was his fault.
That's what I was thinking as I wrote this down.
Yeah.
23 goals, 14 assists in their first season together.
Like that, yeah.
I'd say 45 goals, 17 assists in the 62 games of playing with Mourinho.
Nuts, really. And in a way, probably still a touch underappreciated, probably in that regard. I do think the interesting thing about the Kane Mourinho dynamic is one of the only things I've really learned from a All or Nothing documentary, I thought if you looked at how the insight you got as to how Kane sort of carried himself around that time, and then Jose's sort of saying to him, look, I want you to be on the level of Ronaldo, Messi and all that, I thought was actually an interesting conversation that didn't feel like it was entirely put on, and kind of it gave you a bit of an insight to this player and to this manager.
There was a clip
these documentaries don't always do.
There's a clip in there of Mourinho kind of speaking broadly about the team not doing what he would like, and Kane kind of chips in to say, well, I'd like you to start saying who that is in that case. Yes. I don't think that applies to all of us, and we can work on it.
Yeah.
And Mourinho seemed, just by the look he gave, to really appreciate that someone was willing to challenge his ideas.
I think you got the impression that Kane was like the one who was the most serious of the squad. Like you kind of, how serious is this squad? This guy is serious about being the best, and he probably set himself as a cut above the rest in that regard.
I have a thing with him where I've obviously always appreciated how good he is. I think if you asked me 5 years ago, I would have looked you dead in the eyes and told you Aubameyang was the better player than him. But there is something where as soon as it goes wrong, I only see his flaws. And so at a time like this, that does become more apparent. But I do think, which I didn't think the words would ever leave my mouth, there is something so likable about him in just the way he approaches things, the way, as you say, he clearly wants to do better, be better, be as good as he can be.
Incredibly driven, really.
I think he can be dishonest on the field, but he seems pretty cut straight down the line off it.
Yeah.
Genuine guy.
Yeah, I do think when you look at what he's had, Pochettino, Jose, if he could have had maybe Jose for a bit longer, then maybe he could have gone to an even higher level. Maybe they would have done something a bit differently. We've had some more developments to his game. Maybe if he'd just been at a different club.
That's it. If he's at a different club with more trophies,
his loyalty cost him in a way of what? In terms of the wider.
But we kind of said at the time, joining Bayern is not going to put a stop to that. In fact, he only got laughed at more because he didn't win the league his first year. This is still happening.
Yeah.
Okay, Lawrence, we're back to you for your last pick, which is a left back.
Yeah, not much really to choose from. Was again a toss up between a couple, but I appreciate I'm quite heavily Chelsea at the moment, so I'm gonna go again player that basically we only remember for his time at Inter. Another scrum hat player actually for some of his career, Christian Kivu. Not much to say about him other than that season he again run through walls for Mourinho, gets the job done, solid, part of that treble winning team, which you can never really discount on, especially when you actually look back and compare it to the Guardiola team that they did do over the two legs, especially the famous one at the Nou Camp with 10 men, where backs against the wall, he was part of that. Again, just a dependable player for left back really, but not much more.
Even with the Chelsea influence, I did think you'd take Gallas.
I was very tempted. That's why I had a quick look just to see how much, because I know he did play centre back as well for Chelsea.
For that season where they get the record and stuff, he's predominantly left back, isn't he?
Coming into this, Azpilicueta was number one on my board.
Like I said, if we're getting really emotional over this. Is Kiva over Gallas purely because of the Chelsea situation? But yeah, Gallas would be a better player overall.
Aspie, I think Gallas probably gets done by. He only has that season at left back. Now it also happens to be the season where the team concedes the least goals in Premier League history, but it's that. And then Aspie, I think, gets probably undone by his versatility. I think you probably at his best was probably when free at the back, when he ends up playing as one of the three, obviously not under Jose at that point.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably where he sort of fell down in terms of my board.
Coming into that season, the expectation was that Jose was going to buy a left back, and then he basically says he has to find a way to get Azpilicueta in the team. Ivanovic over at right back, makes it work.
Not dissimilar from, by the way, the Gallas situation. By the way, you said about playing centre halves and fullback and almost a bit ahead of time. That was a real. Look, I've got my two centre halves in John Terry and Carvalho. You're still William Gallas. You've played well at Chelsea a number of years. Can you do a job at left back? Now, I imagine if he had to do that for a longer period of time,
he says
Gallas probably would have kicked off, and he probably wouldn't have been as good. That I think you can do it for a season. You can't keep doing it.
Gallas kicking off.
Well, that's part of the probably plus of him. If you were buying him at the end of the 04-05 season, would have been his mentality would have been something that would have been held up and credited, and then it's one of the worst things that anyone would say about him at this point.
It is also, though, like, I do think when sometimes people think of that Jazz defence, they think of Ashley Cole as playing that and forget that it was Gallas there for that season, for that record.
All right, last pick in the draft, then we'll just run through a couple of players that didn't make the cut, and then we'll go through each of our teams.
The strikers that you would reference.
We'll do that in just a second.
Yeah.
Paulo Ferreira kind of has to be the pick, I think, as a right back that's been left behind. 2 Premier Leaguers, 1 UEFA Cup, 1 Champions League, 2 Premier Leagues, just ultra reliable, disciplined, trusted, which is, as we've said, all Jose asked of you, really. More likely to stop you losing a game than winning it, I think, but I think that's just the reverse of the modern fullback.
Yes.
And I don't have too much more to say about him, to be honest.
Probably be pretty highly valued now.
Yeah.
At the time, he reminded me of like a faceless FIFA player, in a sense of it. There was nothing appealing, but as you said,
not going to let you down.
But everything I've just said about him then is probably how people would describe Jurrien Timber today as a modern fullback. He does do the bombing up and down, but that isn't what you're signing him for. You're signing him to lock down the opposition left winger.
And I would imagine if we watched, like, if you put a highlight reel together, Ferreira probably had more ability than maybe you might think. But like you said, just seems like a steady Eddie type of player.
Okay, some of the players on my board that didn't make the cut: Julio Cesar, as we said. Vitor Bayer was the keeper at Porto for all of those trophies. Left back, Azpilicueta didn't make the cut. William Gallas didn't make the cut. Wayne Bridge, I didn't expect to make the cut. Centre back, Walter Samuel was the only one that I had down that didn't get picked up.
Yeah.
Right back,
I put Toby and Jan down just in case things got really messy.
Oh yeah, I did.
I think he does get the end of Jan Vertonghen's time, I think.
Arbeloa was the 6th right back I had on a list where I was kind of really looking for one there. Maybe Tottenham's at the time would if I'd given it a bit more thought there. In midfield, I thought Deco would have been... I wanted to get
Deco in.
Would have been picked up. I thought I had Nemanja Matic way higher on a list.
I did.
And I thought...
Basically, because of the way I was looking at my team, as if it was a team, I just couldn't have Zanetti, Alonso, and then Matic. It just was too. But he
was sat there for your team, I think.
Yeah, I know.
The season they won the league, he was an absolute monster, Matic. I remember thinking,
he was in team of the year.
He goes to United after they just won the treble. Yeah, and then obviously. It doesn't get any better from there.
He was more mobile at that point. He'd get about the pitch.
I think there's a lot.
He was a monster.
There's a lot to be said when you look at the players that Mourinho have tried to, and like you said, where he took Matic to United.
Sami Khedira was the other one who I thought, if you were looking for some legs in there, do some dirty, scruffy work.
Did think of Cambiasso as well, but again, it's. And then again, if things were getting really hairy, I did think of Modric, although that was a very short. I think one season.
I consider that Manish I put in just for a bit of fun.
Yeah,
I had Kaká on a list knowing really that he wasn't at the level. He is still racking up the goals, even in the small appearances he has, but Ozil is just too good for him to be getting a look in. He's injured straight after signing Ozil steps in and never looks back.
Still never AC Milan Kaka either, is it? It's not the same guy.
Winners wise, I thought you were going to end up with Willian on the right hand side. Damien Duff could have been on both sides. Iron Robin, I was hoping no one tried to pick on the right wing because that doesn't happen until later down the line. I remember being very struck by, firstly, how quick he was when I first saw him, but also like that hairline. What is going on here? I think that's the first time I'd seen someone that young. Look like that sounds horrible, but
I'm pretty sure, gone by like 22, I reckon.
Florin Malouda, if things were getting really desperate down that side.
So I really struggle with
mentioned him as just a reference player to Lawrence when I was trying to not give someone away, like, if you pick this, that, when I was explaining things.
I really struggle with the right and left wing. I don't know about you guys, but like you said with a Robin, is I went through some of the positions and it was so hard to have just a specific player that played a good period of time on the right or left, because I was thinking Schürrle as well.
I thought Duff was the only one that numerically added up that could have gone on both sides.
Duff
I was
and
really
Joe
hoping
Cole,
no one picked Ronaldo outside of the left.
Duff and Joe Cole were my backups for Di Maria, and then I did have Eto'o as my
Joe Cole, with everything I said earlier about Neymar and Hazard, I think he's someone you can stick on a YouTube compilation of his, and he's just a crazy
when
player.
You say his name, I just think of the goal against Sweden, was it, for England? Dom Carter kept trying to recreate that down the park with me in goal. Shout out to Dom for that.
And then the strikers, Zlatan being one of them on the list, Karim Benzema being another, Diego Costa being another one.
I was having an arm between Kane and Costa. I do think that season, again, when they win the league, I thought he was an absolute monster. I wasn't sure how he'd
Benzema may have the most goals for Jose outside of the players picked, or even including some of the players picked.
Again, somebody just ended up kind of not getting the attention because of Ronaldo, and then once he leaves, probably gets his flowers.
I think what I find bizarre with Benzema, because he was an option, is we all come to know Benzema as the Benzema after, the BBC, but at the end where he's the main guy who gets a Ballon d'Or. But like you said, he'd been at Madrid for so long, and his numbers, because everyone talks about Ronaldo, his number, I think, you might have had it, it's like 78 in 150 or something for Mourinho's period.
Ornstein put an exclusive out once that Arsenal are wrapping up a deal, 100 million to sign Di Maria and Benzema.
Yeah.
And there was someone else in there as well. I can't think who it was. It may have been Cohen Trow or something like that. And that's what 100 million got you at that stage. It may even have been euros as well. Didn't expect, because I didn't remember him there, see Benny McCarthy's name popping up quite as much in strikers for Jose and the goals that they banged in that Porto side, especially in the team that go on to win the Champions League. Romelu Lukaku was, if you were really getting down the list, and if everyone had done 4-4-2, then maybe we'd have come in there. Quite amazed none of us did 4-4-2 in the end after seeing kind of the depth of strikers like that. I don't know if there's another player that anyone wants to reference before I just run through the teams that we have.
I would say I kind of wish I went 4-4-2 instead of picking Pogba.
After you said, to
my
be honest, athletes are so terrible.
The
two-man midfielder, Zanetti and Alonso, could have been.
Well, this is the thing. Just to touch on the Zlatan, because he was very close. Again, I think there's a lot to say about a player that performs so well at Inter, one club for him at the start of his career, and then he goes to United, and then again, I probably would have been 38 or something at the time, and again, he racks up great numbers, the Europa League, the EFL Cup. I think you don't normally associate Ibrahimovic as a striker for Mourinho in terms of, you talk about the Drogbas, the Kanes, the Costas, again, incredible player, I think.
If you could go through history and administer a truth serum after certain incidents, hearing the unfiltered thoughts of Ibrahimovic the day that Inter win the Champions League after trading him away, I think would have been quite interesting.
Agreed.
Because for a man that has an ego like his, that must have really, really stung.
Well, so
that'd be a hell of a counselling session, put it that way.
The video, isn't it, where Pep's giving him the orders for Barca on the touchline and Mourinho's right in their ear, so...
What caught me when I look back at the Inter-Barcelona game was Thierry Henry as an unused substitute when you're desperately trying to win that game.
Yeah.
Speaks to the level of that team. Okay.
No, the only one I would have liked in my team would have been Deco. He was a fun player. Obviously, at that time in Porto, they're on the rise. It's a bit of a coming out party for Deco, for Mourinho. Obviously, goes on to have a great career with Barca and Portugal as well. So that'd have been the only one, because he was a genuinely like fun player to watch as well.
Do you wonder how the course of football could have been changed if Mourinho hadn't gone to Chelsea and some of those Porto players had split up a little bit more across the footballing scope and seen where they'd gone? Or if Jose had decided that maybe Carvalho wasn't the guy he was going to go and get, and he goes and gets Deco and brings him to Chelsea, and he tries to get something going with Deco and Lampard in front of Makelele, and we see what happens there.
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
I imagine maybe Deco gets shifted to the wing or something like that
and
to
the
make
Jose,
that work.
Potentially, yeah. When he first came in, Deco later on, obviously under Scolari, I think it's.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, fuck me, this guy's going to rip the league apart, and then sure enough, he kind of regressed a bit.
Okay, I'll start with Lawrence's team. So we've got a 4-3-3, and we've got, starting from the back, forward Petr Cech, Maicon, Carvalho, Cahill, and Kivu at the back. Zanetti, Alonso, and Pogba in midfield. Di Maria, Drogba, and Hazard up top.
Happy with the front three. Happy with it.
TK's side, we've got another 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1, whichever way I guess you want to look at it. Probably 4-2-3-1 for the pair of us, not to speak for you. Casillas in goal, Ivanovic, Terry, Ramos, and Cole in defence. Fabregas, Essien, and Schneider in midfield. Eto'o, Kane, and Cristiano up top.
That's a monster.
That's winning so far, I think.
And for myself, David De Gea in goal, Paulo Ferreira, Lucio, Pepe, and Marcelo at the back. Makelele, Lampard, and Ozil in midfield. Joe Cole, Son, and Milito up top. So, 3 competitive teams. No one, I think, has had a stinker. Just think.
Is there anyone that
Joe Cole and Di Maria? I'll take an Ashley Cole to the cleaners there, I think.
Is there anyone from our teams that you really would have wanted? I definitely wanted to get Özil in the team.
Lampard would have been the one, but the more Milito I watched, the more I just wanted someone to take Drogba before me, which is why I kept putting it off and just forced my hand to do it, because it didn't feel right to take him ahead of Drogba. Yeah. But I did want him in my side. Nice. And that would have taken me to 6 Chelsea players, I think, so might have been a bit too much. But I think that does bring us to an end of another draft on Spitballing Pod. Next ones, I think, maybe an Ancelotti one would be good if there's not too much crossover of some of these players, but maybe the next international break, or maybe we look at one we've got in a couple of weeks. So we'll see what happens. Thank you again for tuning in. We will see you next time. Adios.